I'll look later. I'll look later and tell you if it's recorded in a second. Yeah. Okay. No, it's not too late. We use all that information for our planning for next year, so I mean all the information I can get back will help us. But it might just have, yeah, it is better to do on a computer than on a phone. I will say that. But yeah, I'm sorry. I've had that happen to me too before. You're like, and I can't get that hour of my life back. Oh no. Oh no. Right. I think so. I'll get there. What did we used to say in local holidays?
Good morning. My name is Barbara Bass, and I'm the worship associate today. I'll begin with a poem by Samantha Reynolds. This is where creativity hides. Hollow out your memories until you get the dustiest bits jammed into the corners of your spirit. Forgotten weekends, beliefs you thought were glued on tight. The way shame ignites, only dormant, never gone. How does it all fit? The wake of a life, so much history spooled inside us. You wonder what the point is in all this remembering. But a tree does more than reach for the sun. It feasts on the rain, sucking it like a straw from its darkest buried roots. This is where creativity hides, wearing the mask of your old stories, words, and images, the debris of time waiting to be stitched into art.
Won't you join us in our words for lighting the chalice this morning? If you have one at home, we invite you to pull it out and light it along with these words that we say together. We kindle this flame, symbol of our faith, for the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of love, which calls us to work for justice.
As I said, my name is Barbara. I use the pronouns she, her. And it's my joy to welcome everyone to Valley Unitarian Universalist Congregation and this sacred space. Both you in person and those of you online. We're honored you're here to worship with us today and welcome you no matter your age or able-bodiedness, your spiritual beliefs, your religious background, your family, economic status, political affiliation. We respect your way of loving, and wherever you are on your life's journey, we welcome you to this place of love and community. Let this time together be a coming together to honor diversity in all its forms and to welcome each other with openness, compassion, and care. We're always happy to welcome guests. For those of you visiting Valley UU today, either online or in person, we invite you to raise your hand or stand if you're willing and able so that we can acknowledge you now and greet you after the service. Welcome. And for those of you attending in person and wanting to know more about Unitarian Universalism and Valley UU, a welcome circle will form in the sanctuary after the service. Just look for the sign. Sometimes we meet outside, very daring at this time of year. So anyway, get a beverage and look for that welcome circle sign to join the discussion. If you're on Zoom, all you have to do is accept the Zoom invitation to join a small group. And now, so that we can make that connection across the digital divide, let's take a moment to wave to each other. And for those of you in person, if you look at the camera up here, if you're looking at the screen, it doesn't matter. The camera is the thing. Anyway, you wave, and then are we able to see the online participants? Anyway, we take this opportunity as well to thank and honor the original caretakers of this land, the Pima, Maricopa, and Yavapai people. If you have a burden that you'd like to share with someone, a trained pastoral care associate will be available after the service, both in person and online. And our pastoral care associate in person today is Joanne Smith. There she is. And she'll be waiting for you in the very front of this sanctuary on your right, immediately following the service. And we do have a small private room for you to talk with her. Alternatively, if you're viewing the service online, Claudette Wasil will be on Zoom immediately following the service. All you have to do is send her a chat message. Our lay pastoral care associates are always available via email at pastoralcare@buu.org. In our pulpit today is our minister, the Reverend Sarah Oglesby Dunnigan, and the topic of the service is Finding Our Way Together. Thank you. And now for our opening hymn.
Good morning. My name is Katie Seifert. I'm the Director of Music Ministries, which means as your music director, I get the privilege to hear some of the things you love and some of the things you're not so fond of. And my goal is to offer a little something for everyone. So whether you love the band, or you're not so fond of the band, or you love our hymns, or you're not so fond of the hymns, there's something for everyone. And my goal also is to inspire us to still come together and make this place our home. So after COVID and these last crazy years of transitions, I'd say we're still down an unfamiliar road. But know that you are not alone here. This is our home. So let's stand in body or in spirit and really embrace these lyrics and sing it together, whether you're fond of it or not. You're allowed to move your bodies too. Just our voices. Let's hear it.
Good morning. I'd like to invite the kids up for our Time for All Ages. My name is Kelsey McIntyre. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the Faith Formation Assistant. The adults are going to be talking about creativity today. So I wanted to read you guys a book about using the creation powers of your imagination. It's called The Idea Jar, and I am so sorry to the author, I may butcher this name, Adam Lehrhaupt, and illustrated by Deb Piluti. This is my teacher's idea jar. We keep our story ideas in it. My teacher says a story can be about anything we want. A space robot or a horseless cowgirl. A giant dragon. There's no such thing as a bad story idea. And there are tons of ways to make a story. You can write it, draw it, talk it. You can even combine ideas to make your story better. It's important to create stories for your ideas, or else your ideas get rowdy. That can be trouble. When it's part of a story, an idea is happy. But when it's not, uh-oh, the ideas, this isn't good. Watch out, that robot idea has lasers. Hide, that idea of a dragon is huge. These ideas need a story to calm them down. Let's see. Once upon a time, there was a Viking. He sailed the open seas. Then let's add another idea. A space robot. All of a sudden, a robot from space zoomed down at the Viking. He attacked with his lasers, but the Viking held up his shield. Good. Now the ideas are distracted. Let's capture another one. A dragon taking a snooze on a nearby island heard the battle and came to interrupt. He grabbed the robot and said, "Stop fighting, I'm trying to sleep." The Viking sailed away quickly. Excellent! Look how happy those ideas are. Now back in the jar, ideas. What stories will you guys make? And now if the adults would please stand and join us for the Bridge of Love, we will sing the children out. Thank you.
Well, that felt good. Oh, I wish I had the kind of guts as our little one did, like wandering all over the place. And now we're going to take time to center ourselves. It's a group activity so that we can all share with ourselves soulfully. Our reading is by Joseph Campbell. You must have a room or a certain hour or so a day when you don't know what was in the newspapers that morning. You don't know who your friends are. You don't know what you owe anybody. You don't know what anybody owes you. This is a place where you can simply experience and bring forth what you are and what you might be. This is the place of creative incubation. At first, you may find that nothing happens there. But if you have such a sacred place and use it, something eventually will happen. Let this be such a place and such a moment. And we invite you now, if you are so inclined, to participate in creating that space by placing a stone in the sand, lighting a candle, or engaging with the flowing fountain.
As the band continues to play, and we're continuing to partake in the rituals, if you're sitting here, I invite you to take this moment to breathe. So often we get caught up in the busyness of the day and forget how important that breath is to remind us to go into our bodies, that we are more than just our bodies, and that life force that brings us back to calm, to peace of mind. Just to breathe. We invite you to sing along, body or spirit, the river.
River is our healer, the
river is a sage. The river knows no end, and the river feels no age. River is a leader every single day. It's living in the moment, and it always finds a way. Water heal my body, water heal my soul. When I go down to the water, by the water I feel whole. The song goes like that all throughout. The river calls me over, it's calling out my name. In the day and in the night, I hear the river all the same. It's calling me over, it's calling out my name. Oh, a river gathers tears just like a river gathers rain. Water heal my body, water heal my soul. When I go down to the water, by the water I feel whole. The river is a traveler, always on the go. The river never worries if it's fast or if it's slow. River, take me to where I need to go. Oh, and I will just relax and let the river flow. Water heal my body, water heal my soul. When I go down to the water, by the water I feel whole. Water heal my body, water heal my soul. When I go down to the water, by the water I feel whole. Water heal my body, water heal my soul. When I go down to the water, by the water I feel whole.
My worship associate reflection is titled Salt Cedar, a Tree Tale of Diversity. Not far from here, there is a magical place, the Eden Hot Springs. Before it changed hands many times, there was a hotel that was a destination for healing and restoration. And in the 1970s, Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones rented it for a time, and while there, they carved out a lovely hot spring pool in the shape of a guitar. Today, some people call it the goddess pool, but me, no, I'm guitar. These days, it is privately owned, and one can visit by invitation only, and rustic tent camping has replaced the hotel, which disintegrated many years ago. By sheer luck, I received an invitation and now travel there one weekend every month during the season, which is October through April. While the hotel is long gone, the water is still healing and the counterculture vibe, timeless. In recent years, an unwanted visitor has become a permanent resident, the salt cedar tree, also known as the tamarisk. It has lovely pink flowers, but due to its greed, and actually that's not the right picture, it should be picture 4. Okay, well, you can see it right here. It has lovely pink flowers, but due to its greed, it has completely taken over many areas of the hot springs, as it has throughout the Southwest. It was introduced in the early 1800s as an ornamental and for erosion control. It is a fire-adapted species and has long tap roots that allow them to intercept deep water tables and interfere with natural aquatic systems. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, it is an invasive species that can directly alter environmental conditions to promote their own establishment and persistence through time. It has caused massive changes to riparian ecosystems and stream bank structures over the last century throughout the southwestern United States. They grow as either shrubs or small trees that can reach heights of 12 to 15 feet. They can displace or actively outcompete native species of willow and cottonwood. Salt cedar disrupts the structure and stability of native plant communities by monopolizing limited moisture and increasing the frequency, intensity, and effect of fires. Their foliage can add salt deposits to the soil, inhibiting growth of other species. Although it provides some shelter, the foliage and flowers of salt cedar provide little food value for native wildlife species that depend on nutrient-rich native plant resources. At the hot springs, salt cedar trees have taken over the natural habitat, leaving in their wake an incredible mess because their dropped leaves create a dense underbrush that disallows anything to grow underneath it and also increases the risk of fire. The salt cedar trees have essentially sucked out much of the diversity in the area. Salt cedar trees grow fast and are notoriously difficult to tame or remove. The current proprietor of the hot springs has a long-range plan to garden out their monopoly by introducing beehives, reintroducing plants in gardens, and trimming them back where possible. The hot springs is an untamed area, and taming the tamarisk is a laboriously monumental task. I've come to think of the salt cedar as a metaphor for the cycle of creativity and diversity. When first introduced in the US, it was a creative solution to the erosion problem created by the dams. For a time, it worked until it didn't work, and then became yet another problem to solve. Learning how to live with salt cedar and reintroducing diversity requires patience and nurturing the environment. We can't just hate the salt cedar and blame it for what it does naturally. And perhaps we can acknowledge that the original invasive species was the dams. The project to clean up and garden out the salt cedar at the hot springs will take longer than the remaining time I have, but it seems to me that making a commitment to foster diversity in all its forms is the ongoing human and humanitarian project. Blessed be.
When I was teaching government in the community college, I taught a summer class that included dual credit high school students. This meant that my class had students ranging in age from 16 to their mid-60s. I had students who were immigrants from all over the world, and I had students who had lived in the segregated South. And I had students who were working in downtown Dallas and trying to complete their bachelor's degree, and government class was a state requirement. So there we were. One of my favorite writing assignments was to ask students to think about a time when they were first aware of government in their lives and write about what they noticed and why. That summer, the diversity of that class provided two powerful stories from opposite ends of the spectrum. One of the 16-year-olds was an immigrant from Mexico. She talked about moving to the US and suddenly seeing a city built on rules, traffic laws for cars and bikes, regular trash services, street lights, and services that her small town in Mexico had never had. She was aware of them partly because there were suddenly a lot more ways to get in trouble, but also because the city looked different. It functioned differently. Now, if you've never lived somewhere without city services like trash removal, you probably have no idea what the difference is. Having traveled to Central America and Mexico, I knew exactly what she meant. We have obvious building codes and rules to ensure food safety at restaurants and that the water from our taps is clean water. Which doesn't mean we don't break these, but that's another sermon. She was simultaneously in awe of all of this structure and afraid of it. And we talked about the revenue policies that made it all possible. An older man in his 60s spoke about moving from Washington, D.C. to Texas in the early 60s. He was a teenager then, and he shared about crossing the Mason-Dixon line, and suddenly his family was entering restaurants from the back door. He remembered the first time he had ever seen drinking fountains labeled black and white. For the first 15 years of his life, he hadn't realized how differently his family had lived than many others in the South. And when he asked his parents why this was happening, his dad just told him, "It's the law, son." And just a couple years later, when the Civil Rights Act passed, and as the area around him began to slowly change, he understood that that was also the law. As the class continued to tell stories, we all began to see the many different ways that government touched our lives, for better or worse. What was amazing to me about this experience was the way the curriculum came alive because of the sheer diversity in the room. Their stories illustrated both our history and the way our society has governed itself over time, how it has changed, and also how it has impacted different people in different ways. I think all of us understood our country a little differently after that. And the understanding could not have come from a textbook as powerfully as it came from those stories. In fact, I assure you the textbook was quite boring. I think things that some of us took for granted, like municipal services, suddenly seemed a little more important. Maybe even paying taxes for those. And some of the younger students had never experienced some of the things that were described to them by the older students, and they suddenly didn't seem like ancient history or cautionary tales. They were real. They happened to somebody in the room with them. Working in the community colleges I served and also brought many rich experiences like this, opportunities to learn alongside my students because their experiences in other countries or because of their different experiences in this country taught me every day to listen beyond my own story, even sometimes to set down my story or let it be reframed from another's experiences. Traveling also gave me the opportunity to see my own country and life in new ways. I traveled with my friend Freddie in 2001 from Dallas to his home in Silao, a small town between Irapuato and León in Mexico. As we were leaving together, I remember being somewhat annoyed by the huge bag he had packed, like about this high. It was heavy canvas and it was filled to the brim and weighed definitely more than I did. It was also awkward. He'd clearly packed all manner of things in it. It was so big, we couldn't take a normal taxi. We needed a van. So once we were in Mexico, I was nervously wondering what his home would be like. It was my first time visiting. Everywhere I looked, things were dusty and nothing looked like a house to me. There were loose dogs along the road, and the system of roadways felt like a country ramble. When we pulled up to his house, I was very confused because I didn't recognize it as a house. We pulled into a garage of what looked like a cinder block building, nondescript from the outside. Once we were inside, though, color and liveliness was everywhere. Beautiful tile and painted walls of many colors greeted me. We were in a kind of inner courtyard. There was an upstairs and a downstairs with several rooms, and his mother greeted us with joy, and we settled into unpacking the large bag he had brought. He pulled out a number of gifts for each member of his family, for his nieces and his sister first. Then for his mom, he pulled out, I swear, it was like pulling a bunny out of a hat, a box with the parts for a ceiling fan, which was a gift for his mother's kitchen. And then, somehow, he pulled out a toilet seat. He had a mysterious smile, and he told me this gift was for me. It wasn't until later I realized that most bathrooms I encountered there did not have toilet seats. And he wanted to be sure I was comfortable in his home. And he knew that an American would expect a toilet seat. I felt very small when I remembered the annoyance I had at the size of his bag. Most of its contents were for other people. I learned later that that entire house and its ongoing improvements were made from the earnings he was making working in the community college with me. And he was always saving to add to his mother's comfort and his sister's needs. Traveling changed my understanding of myself and my own country, and it also showed me different ways to be human and to be in community. It challenged my assumptions and my values and caused internal transformations I couldn't undo even if I wanted to. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And then sometimes you begin to know what you don't know, and you develop an awareness that there's more to the story. So much more. Sometimes this happens because you get curious and you ask questions or explore until you discover something new. Sometimes it happens because you try something new and the experience reveals something that was hidden. It doesn't have to be complicated, though. For example, for years, my bike that I rode was a touring road bike with thin tires. It was naturally fast. I definitely wasn't, but the bike was fast. And when I moved here, I traded it for a mountain bike with fat tires and shock absorbers. I pay attention to totally different things on this bike. I use different muscles. I understand the trail differently than when I walk it. The terrain is dangerous and exhilarating in new ways. And while I don't move as fast, it's definitely more work. Yeah. I'm a different rider and a different observer as a result. Diverse experiences and perspectives change us. They wake us up in new ways, allow us to see new possibilities and to ask different questions. Creativity is directly related to curiosity, our ability to ask questions and to see things in new ways, to think in new ways. Seth Goldenberg says that curiosity is a decision requiring intent and discipline. Unfortunately, we're often deeply uncomfortable with curiosity as a way of living or leading or doing our daily business. Curiosity isn't linear, and it exists for its own sake. It doesn't usually move swiftly towards solutions that make us feel closure. Questions often become more questions before they find answers that can change us or our circumstances. When I was teaching, one of my favorite assignments was to have students create a research quest, which basically meant I was trying to teach them to keep asking questions. They started with a question and mapped how each answer led to new questions. It wasn't meant to have a clear ending. or to make a particular argument. Then I had them share with each other the questions they'd been following. It was so hard to get them started, because by the time they got to my college classroom, these students had years of digesting answers someone else had discovered. But once they got used to asking questions, their capacity for curiosity and questions became energizing. Goldenberg says that without a robust culture of curiosity, imagination is rendered impotent, and all we're doing is surviving the day on autopilot, surrendering our agency, consuming the choices others have made for us, relinquishing our right to be the author of our own story. In order to break this pattern, we must begin to challenge and disrupt the stories we've been asked to repeat ad infinitum. These might be known as legacy narratives that shape our society. Everything in our world is currently being disrupted right now. Our understandings of ourselves, as from gender to social justice to money to relationship with the natural world, are all being challenged. In fact, our relationship with the entire world as we know it could be summed up as, it's complicated. This is because we live in a large-scale time of transition, living between models of how we see ourselves, what we believe in, and how we agree to realize these values in practice. We're experiencing something I would call a cultural interregnum, or a transition between fundamentally different sets of values. And we are all in the middle of a large-scale reimagination of ourselves as humans, human communities, and a living planet. The tensions between us are often the result of these growing gaps between us, as some of us engage in disruptive innovations, acting as radically curious entrepreneurs who are in essence bringing a cultural operating system upgrade. Yeah, everything's changing and we don't know how to work it. These dreamers are interrupting our sleep with new ideas and new ways of being. The stories we've been telling are kind of a legacy narrative, and they often carry entrenched traditions that reinforce the power structures around us. The new stories will take time to reshape our communities and change our understanding of each other and ourselves. So we're experiencing friction and uncertainty, growing pains, because so many facets of our society are changing, but not at the same time. The seeds are being planted, the branches are being pruned, the bees are pollinating, new possibilities are germinating. Some of the solutions we try won't work or will cause new problems. Some of the questions we ask won't have any clear answers. I'm sorry. That's how it's going to be. We're invited to be creative and radically curious to imagining flourishing futures together. We can't traverse this landscape without being changed. For me, the truth we are discovering is that monolithic living isn't good for the salt cedar trees, and it's not good for us either. And whether we admit it or not, we are all capable of being the invasive species, consuming all the resources and creating an environment others can't survive in. We need diverse elements to contribute to our understanding of the world around us and to create a sustainable future, to help us understand creative solutions to shared problems, and to help us actually understand those problems from many perspectives. We also need to be allowed to take things apart and put them back together differently, to ask questions and to break the rules, to experiment in ways that may feel uncomfortable or challenging. My prayer for us is that we make a commitment to bridge the gaps between us, to allow the questions and hold off on easy answers. My prayer is that we will see that each of us is needed, that our diversity is our strength, and that we will keep finding our way together. May we find creativity to be a blessing more than a challenge, and curiosity to be its engine. May we find joy in new ways of being together despite what is uncomfortable and unknown. May it be so. May it ever be so. Amen.
Dear friends, we have a shortfall for meeting our desired budget, and we need your help to make it up. Here's how you can help. If you haven't submitted your pledge for the coming year, and you can do this as a friend of VUU, it's not necessary to be a member. It's not too late to submit a pledge. Just make your way to the VUU website and click on the Give button. If you've already made your pledge, and thank you for that, we're hoping you can increase it. Even a small amount will help. You can use the same Give button to increase your pledge. Of course, if you prefer to talk to someone about this, you can call the VUU office during business hours. Many, many heartfelt thanks to those of you who have already responded to our urgent requests. We need everyone who has not yet pledged or who can increase their pledges to do so as soon as possible, because our annual meeting is 2 weeks from today on June 4th, which is when we will vote to approve the budget. So we need to have those final numbers all checked in, well, before June 4th. Anyway, yeah. So thank you in advance for your generosity, and the ushers will now pass the donation plates.
Throwing them on. This song that the choir is about to sing is a special request song from the Let's Have Fun Together auction. Marion Hoffman won the auction item to choose a song for the choir to sing. Thank you, Marion. And this is a song that she chose. It's one of her dear favorites, called Dreamer by Ozzy Osbourne.
Gazing through the window at the world outside, wondering will Mother Earth survive, hoping that mankind will stop abusing her sometime. After all, there's only just the two of us, and here we are still fighting for our lives. after time.
I watch the sun go down like every one of us. I'm hoping that the dawn will bring a sign, a better place for those who will come after us this time.
Creative Spirit, source of life and love, we give thanks for the beauty of this day and for the company of those assembled here. Thank you for the breezes of change, clearing our heads and bringing fresh ideas. May they cleanse our minds of the oppressions and isms that divide us. Thank you for the flame of hope, the heat of righteous anger, the warmth of compassion, and the fire of commitment. May they bubble the cauldrons of our creativity and transformation. Thank you for the oceans of love, rivers of connection, tears of relief, and pools of serenity. May healing waters flow over us and through us and among us, wearing down the sharp rocks of despair to bring joy in the morning. Thank you for the good earth beneath us, around us, and within us. May we take this clay and co-create a new realm of justice and beauty. Thank you for all these and more. We accept our gifts and commit to building, sculpting, painting, singing, and dancing them to life, to abundant life. So be it. Blessed be. Amen.
Please stand in body or in spirit for our closing song, I Am Willing.
Seems so strange.
And please join us in extinguishing our chalice together. And though we extinguish the chalice, our connection to each other and this community remains. May its light guide us this week as we walk the path of justice, speak words of love, and fill our world with passion until we meet again.
And just a quick note for those of you who are hoping to stay for the baby shower we're having for a couple of folks that we've been companioning in the process of immigrating here. Mom went into labor. Nothing like people gathering to bring you gifts to make the baby want to come. So we'll still gather in rooms 1 and 2 with food and gifts, and we'll make sure all of those get to her. I don't know if some of the family will be able to join us or not, but we have some kind of urgent needs happening in our community. You may be aware that when Title 42 left, we have a lot of folks coming into our community now looking to get to various places in the United States and needing shelter and food and other things to get them on their way. Lots of places are helping, but they need resources, and we're going to be talking about that as well. So if you want to come find out what the immigration team is doing and have a little party with us, we would love to see you in classrooms 1 and 2. Thanks. Go in peace. Be creative. Ask questions. Stay curious. This is how we build the future together. Blessed be.